Humans of the cardboard. Today I'm talking about, hold on, MIMIGHOUL. I love this deck so much. It's one of my favorite decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's definitely a top 10 deck for me, maybe even a top 5 deck for me uh, all time at this point. And I know it's new, but like when you're in love, you're in love. So you know. So the kind of conversation I want to have today about MIMIGHOUL is what do we go for? What when Konami gives us support for Mimigul, which I get it, we're not really that close to. When you look at a timeline on in the OCG from when we would expect our next wave of Mimigul support, here's a pretty somewhat easy way to look at it. So Konami gets a world premiere pack once a year. That product for them is used to import all of the TCG exclusive cards that have come in the most recent year. In the one that came out in September for them in 2024, they got the Flame Swordsman stuff, the Ashen stuff, the Tistina stuff. Those are the three archetypes they got. From there, they also got a bunch of, just other TCG exclusive, all the random stuff from like core sets, whatever rounded out core sets and other stuff that just was TCG exclusive in there. There's some stuff in there, but there's not really much in terms of, actual heavy impact. So what does that tell you? Well, it is March 2025 right now. It's the beginning of March in 2025. And with that, what do we have so far? I guess technically we got Flame Swordsman support in Alliance Insight. We have not gotten Tistina and we have not gotten Ashen support, at least name support. We technically got that like weird Rhoda card that kind of helps them both a little bit in Alliance Insight as well, but not like named support. I would expect that maybe in the next set or the set after, but that's kind of what we're looking at this point. And so I would kind of expect the same thing for Mimighoul. Unfortunately, Mimighoul is kind of in the Tistina slot. It's in the earlier slot, not the later slot. So even though Mimighoul kind of just came out 2 core sets ago, or kind of finished its support 2 core sets ago for us where we are right now in the TCG, we probably have to wait until this time next year to kind of be waiting for support for them. Regardless, I love the deck. So I want to talk about what they need for support. There's a bunch of different ways you could go with it, but I want to get out, just get my thoughts out there for where it is from an avid Mimighoul lover. I love the art design on all the cards. I love the lore aspect of the deck. I'm a big fan of Freerin, and this this just hits close to home, like right perfectly timed with Freerin coming out, kind of. And I love that. And I think the deck has potential too. It's a weird thing for me personally, where I never would have said out loud, like, I love flip decks. That's my favorite thing in the game. But like weirdly, some of my favorite decks just are some of the most like potent flip decks that have existed, in modern day, right? Subterra from Toss format was my first like favorite deck. It's the first deck I ever played competitively. That's on my top, list of archetypes. From there, we have ninjas. When ninjas got their support, 2-ish years ago or 3-ish years ago at this point, I really like the new support. I played them for a little bit. It wasn't enough to kind of keep them up, but like I really like the way the deck wants to play. And it's on my list. It's on my short list of favorite archetypes. And then, of course, now we have Mimighoul. So, like, it's one of those things where I never would have said, like, I love flip archetypes, but then I look at it and I'm like, why are 3 of my 6 or 7 top favorite archetypes of all time all flip decks? It's weird. I don't know. But, like, I love it, and that's why we're talking about today. So, let's actually jump into what we're talking about. So, looking at Mimighoul, there are obviously the generic questions you can say about any archetype that's not tier 1 or tier 2, and you say, how do we make it better? Well, make it bigger, faster, stronger. Make it, do what it wants to do faster. Make it, more explosive. Get it stronger engine cards, whatever. I'm not really concerned about that. You could say that for 95, 98 even % of archetypes that exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! That stuff's obvious. For the actual like nuanced discussion on the archetype, I want to talk about what specifically Mimighoul feels like it's missing to me when I play it. The first thing to me is a new main deck name, right? There's armor and there is Cerberus. I don't play either of those names. Kiki, stinker. she wants all the attention right now. Anyway, so like those cards are kind of duty to me, straight up. Like they're just not playable, and we play all 5 of the other names. That being said, it feels like there's a name missing, and it feels like we need a superior extender in the deck. That's kind of a slot to me that just feels kind of clearly missing at this point. Dragon's your main normal summon. Archfiend is what feels like a mandatory engine requirement. It's not a terrible card. It does pair with any other Mimighoul for the most part, so that's good. But it feels like a card you won't really want to open. But like if you do, it's fine. But it's a card you need to play. It helps you win the hand advantage battle over multiple turns, and also get flips on turn one. But we'll talk about that. Then you have Fairy. Fairy is really important for the second wave of support, but at the same time, it's also a letdown. When you look at this card, it's got a ton of text, but at the end of the day, when you actually play this deck, you realize very quickly that this card is basically just like, I don't even know what the best example of this is, but I call it like Jester Confit. This card literally just says special summon this card to your side of the field. That's really all this card says. You almost never want to set this card on the opponent's field and try to flip it up. That just never happens. Its flip effect is just not good at all. So you just don't do that. And so this card to me feels like even if we got a better version of this card, like a more superior extender, I would still play this card, at least as a one of, for like when we need just another name to keep pushing all that. But I would really appreciate a better name that power creeps this one a little bit and helps us still maintain enough names in the deck. And that's a big thing for me as well, because you'll learn when you play this deck, if you open a engine heavy hand, sometimes you go through 6-7 names just on turn one and you only play 10 total. So you don't want to run out of your resources all that quickly. So that would be something I'd really love to see. From there, we also talk about Slime. Obviously, Slime and Master, the rest of the monsters, those are fine. Master, by the way, was so close to being one of the most crazy cards in the deck. They nerfed it a little bit, but it's okay. It's still a solid card. Another tool I'd love to see is just a more surefire way to get flips on turn one, or at least your turn one. Whether you're going first or going second, I want a more reliable way to flip up turn one. So whether it's turn one and you want to resolve Slime more consistently, you want to turn on stuff like Thrust and Talents more consistently, whatever, it feels like the deck isn't consistent enough. Fork's a miss, man. You just shouldn't be playing Fork. Because it's a spell and it doesn't do anything else, it's just not enough, and your opponent gets to pick which effect you get, which is just not ideal. Aside from that, you put yourself in a position where you rely on stuff like Maker to hit a 50-50 to get you a flip, or you have to get all the way to a rank one, which is Embodiment of Punishment. And if your opponent has an Imperm or Veiler, I guess Imperm wouldn't work because your opponent have a monster, but Veiler, whatever, something to stop this, it's really going to be a huge choke point for you. You're actually going to find yourself in an awkward position at that point, which we don't love anyway. So for me, I'd love to see maybe some combination of the two. I've thought about an idea where like maybe there's a Mimighoul monster that says target a monster your opponent controls that's face down, flip it face up, then special summon this card to your field. Like, you know what I mean? That's what it does. It extends itself on the field and gets a flip. It's kind of fairy, but it actually just does way more. In getting a flip. So if you're flipping Archfiend, you're getting the hand advantage. If you're flipping Dragon going second, you're actually able to break a board with Engine. This deck does not break boards with Engine aside from like Typhon and Zeus. Like aside from going Typhon and Zeus, this Engine does not break boards, via its own merits. And so a more consistent way to flip turn one would be huge for playing second and just going first and just, playing through stuff better overall and grinding. I also would love for some, I would say some recursion, at least from Graveyard. I would love, maybe even if this same name I'm talking about, let's say it's a monster and it says you can target a face down monster your opponent controls, flip it face up, and if you do special summon this card, that's like the main effect. Let's say it has a second effect, or for its flip effect, it says when this card is flipped, you can target, let's say 2. 3 feels crazy on a card like that, but let's target 2 cards in either graveyard, shuffle them back into the deck. Then if they were 2 Mimighoul cards, you can draw 1 card. So it gives you it gives you the incentive to shuffle your own cards back to get the advantage, get the draw, or you could obviously use it to flip and hit, grind and resources in your opponent's grave. So I like a lot of those things. Those are kind of the 2 combinations of things that I'd love to see, is like a main deck name, extender, like that's just better than fairy, and also a way to flip much faster. Like turn one consistently. Consistently is the key to me. There's multiple ways they could do it. I listed that monster as an example, but there's multiple ways they could go about it. The last thing I would mention is like the deck still doesn't have a boss monster. I get it, Master's like sort of a boss monster, but this card feels like more of an engine card than a boss monster at the end of the day. And if you're gonna make the deck built around like rank ones, they could make a legit rank one, you know, boss monster that is actually like a legit end board piece. I know Throne sort of is that, but like it feels more engine than end board boss, right? It feels like it's more so just getting you Master, and it's fine. It's still a solid card, but it still doesn't give you that feeling of end board, you know, boss monster status. And not that every deck has to have one. This is by far the least important to me. The other two things I mentioned earlier are clearly more important to me. But if they want to do that, I will say sometimes the deck does feel like it doesn't end on that strong of a board. A very like conditional board, depending on the deck you're playing against, kind of situation. And it doesn't feel like that much overall. And a lot of decks can play through it, especially with board breakers and others. So those are the three things I would say that I feel like Mimighoul misses. As far as consistency, I have no concerns between Dungeon, Dragon, Maker, even Room. Like even when you sort of brick but you draw Room, like Room is getting you engine and interrupting your opponent. So I still don't even hate that. You know, Archfiend plus any Mimighoul is basically combo. Master is just getting you follow up. Like the deck can grind. Like I have no concerns with consistency. I have no concerns with Speller Traps even. Like I get it. If they make a bonkers Speller Trap, I'm not gonna complain about it if it's like a card that's too good not to play. But it doesn't feel like a necessity to me. It feels like the monster lineup in the main wants it. Fairy's just that card where I don't want to play 3, but it feels like you kind of need to with the current status of the deck, or at least 2 of it. And it literally just says summon this card to the field. And it feels like in 2025 you should be playing higher quality cards than that overall. So there you go. Those are my overall thoughts. I know we're probably a year from even getting like Mimighoul support actually announced, because Mimighouls probably won't even get printed in the OCG until September of this year. But I couldn't stay away. I love this archetype too much. I at least want to have a fun discussion about it. So these are my overall thoughts on Mimighoul and where they kind of stand in the current their current status in the modern game. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well. If you're a big Mimighoul fan, let me know your thoughts down below on them. What would you love to see more than anything? What holes do you feel like the deck has where, like, obviously aside from just the basic shit of just make the deck stronger, give them a crazy boss monster, whatever, what specifically do you think you would want to see from the deck? Even if you have a actual example of an exact card you'd want, I'd love to hear from that as well, because just helps push the conversation, and we can come up with some really cool ideas. So I'd love to hear that from you guys. I'm out of here for today, though. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Stay tuned for more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff from me down the line, deck profiles, discussions, news videos, all that stuff. You guys know I keep that consistently going. But I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, as always, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.